All right, everybody, welcome back again for another episode of We Talk Sports. This is Andy here with Sam. This is our third ever episode. We're taking a look at the NHL playoffs. Hockey's playoffs is my favorite postseason sport. And Sam here is learning about hockey, does not know as much about hockey as some of the other sports, but he has started to get to know the teams a little bit, playing some video game hockey on PlayStation, and we're both Avalanche fans, so sometimes we get to see some of the teams that they play against. So keep in mind we're Avalanche fans. That might impact our predictions here, or at least for one of us. I don't think we're both going in that direction, so let's take a look. Let's jump right in, Sam. We'll start out west where the Avalanche live. Our first playoff matchup we're looking at is the Winnipeg Jets versus the St. Louis Blues. Winnipeg was the number one overall seed out west. What do you think is going to happen in that series?
I have the Winnipeg Jets beating the St. Louis Blues.
Agreed. I think that's going to be a tough series. Possibly go 7 games, but I think Winnipeg's going to win that one. Next up, you have, I think, many people think are the two best teams out west, unfortunately having to play in the first round because the NHL has a terrible system for how they set up their playoffs. Please change that if you're listening, NHL. But we do get the excitement of an amazing first round series between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. The Nico Ratnin face-to-face head-off started the season on the Avalanche, was traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, and then shortly afterwards the Dallas Stars. So they're all old friends. What do you think, Sam? Avalanche or Dallas Stars?
I have the Avalanche winning.
All right, same here. Going with the Avalanche, showing the hometown bias a little bit, I suppose. All right, next up you have the Las Vegas Golden Knights versus the Minnesota Wild. What do you think, Sam?
I have the Las Vegas Golden Knights beating the Wild.
Same here. Las Vegas always extremely tough come playoff time. So I think they're going to win that one, and probably, in my mind, relatively easily. And then you have the LA Kings, who in my mind were a little bit of a surprise in terms of how well they did this year, going up against the Edmonton Oilers, who lost the Stanley Cup last year. A little bit surprising they weren't a higher seed. But what do you think, LA Kings versus the Edmonton Oilers?
I have the Oilers beating the Kings.
Same here. We have the exact same 4 teams winning out west. The Edmonton Oilers going to show that championship pedigree that almost went all the way last year, just missed out. They've got some of the best players in the game. So going with the Edmonton Oilers. Let's take a look at the first round out east, and then we'll wrap up each side of the bracket after that. So out east, your number 1 seed, the Toronto Maple Leafs, going up against the Ottawa Senators in an all-Canada first-round series. What do you think, Sam?
I have the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Agreed. Toronto's playing well. I don't trust them come playoff time, but I think they're going to get by Ottawa in this particular series, and then we'll see what happens from there. Second round, we've got all Florida series. So Tampa Bay versus the Florida Panthers. What do you think about that matchup, Sam?
I have the Florida Panthers.
All right, defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. I'm going with Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they're ready to get back to that top spot where they were previously. They've got the goaltending, so I'll go Tampa Bay Lightning. Next up, you have the Washington Capitals, all-time goal-scoring leader as of this season in Ovechkin. And the Montreal Canadiens. What do you think? Capitals or Canadiens?
I have the Capitals winning.
All right. I am going with, let's see, I'll go with the Capitals also in that one. Last one out east, you have the Carolina Hurricanes versus the New Jersey Devils. What do you think, Sam?
I have the New Jersey Devils winning that match.
All right. I have the Carolina Hurricanes, so a couple of differences on this side of the bracket. Let's go back out west, and we'll finish that side out. So out west, Sam, you had the Winnipeg Jets and Colorado Avalanche in the second round. Brutal road, I think, for both teams. The top half of this bracket, to me, is so much tougher than the bottom half. But what do you think, Jets or Avalanche?
Avalanche.
Good choice. I'm going with the Avalanche also. I'm sure the fans up in Winnipeg will bring it and make that a tough place to win on the road, but I think Avalanche are going to pull this one out. All right, the other half of the West that's left, we both had the Las Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers. What do you think, Sam?
I have the Las Vegas Golden Knights winning.
All right, so knocking Canada entirely out west by having Winnipeg and Edmonton lose. You've got the Avalanche and Las Vegas Golden Knights. I think Edmonton is going to win that series and move forward, but it's going to be a tough one. I think that's a definite 7-game series. Could go either way, but I'm going to go with the Oilers. I've got Avalanche Oilers. Sam has Avalanche Golden Knights. Sam, who do you think is going to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals out west?
I have Las Vegas beating the Avalanche.
Wow. Okay. Can't say that would be a huge surprise. Golden Knights are a good team, but I'm going to stick with the Avalanche. I think they're ready to get back to the top. I think they've got the goaltending now this year. They've got the depth. They're playing well. They get Gabriel Landeskog back in the lineup after missing many years since their last Stanley Cup championship. I think that'll put them over the top. So I've got the Avalanche. Sam has the Las Vegas Golden Knights. Let's look at the East. Sam, you had Toronto and Florida advancing. Who do you think is going to win that series?
I have the Toronto Maple Leafs.
All right. So Sam's sticking with the number 1 seed, Toronto Maple Leafs. I had Toronto and Tampa Bay advancing. I think this is where Tampa Bay's goaltending is going to stand up and Toronto's postseason woes are going to continue. I've got Tampa Bay with a little bit of an upset moving on to the Eastern Conference Finals. On the bottom half of the bracket, Sam, you had the Washington Capitals and the New Jersey Devils playing each other. Who do you think is going to win that one?
The Capitals.
All right, good choice there. I had the Capitals facing the Carolina Hurricanes. Carolina is one of those teams that has been really good in the playoffs themselves recently, just haven't been able to quite get over the top the last few years. But I'm going with the Carolina Hurricanes to beat the Washington Capitals in this particular case. So we get to the Eastern Conference Finals. Sam, you have the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Washington Capitals. What do you think is going to happen there?
I have the Toronto Maple Leafs beating the Capitals.
All right, so number 1 seed Toronto Maple Leafs getting into the Stanley Cup Finals. In my case, I had the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Carolina Hurricanes, two teams that are always in it, or at least have been the last few years. And I think that goaltending of Tampa Bay is going to continue to get them some wins, and they're going to move on for a rematch of the 2022 Stanley Cup Finals. Colorado Avalanche versus Tampa Bay Lightning on my side. Sam, your finals are the Las Vegas Golden Knights versus the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who's going to win the whole thing?
I have the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the whole thing.
All right, well, Canada is going to be happy to hear that from you if that works out. Hasn't been a Canadian Stanley Cup champion in a very long time, too long, I would say. And so the Toronto Maple Leafs in your bracket winning the Stanley Cup championship. I have the Avalanche and the Tampa Bay Lightning, and again in that rematch of 2022. And I think we're going to get the same outcome as 2022. I think Nathan MacKinnon and Gabriel Landeskog and the rest of the Avalanche are going to raise that cup. They're going to beat Tampa Bay and win the Stanley Cup again. And we'll have an Avalanche parade in downtown Denver shortly afterwards. All right, so those are our predictions. We'll come back at the end of the playoffs, see how we did, talk about the playoffs a little bit. Hope that you enjoy them as much as I'm sure we will. And with that, that's the end of our We Talk Sports Episode 3 NHL Playoff Preview.